By the way, this is a brilliant trap that Anish just fell into.
Poor Anish Giri, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and currently in the path of the juggernaut that is the unstoppable Magnus Carlsen. This one of the greatest tournaments of the year. Something unprecedented happened. All that to come, plus a sneaky trap. Magnus playing white here. He kicks off with pawn e4, e5 from Giri. This is over the board, blitz chess, Superbet rapid and blitz. Love this tournament. Fasten your seatbelts. We get a Spanish game on the board, started by bishop to b5. And now what does Giri do? He plays one of the most drawish continuations with the Berlin defense. Is he looking to add this game to his most famous memoir? Magnus has the option now to castle, go into the Berlin endgame with the queens off the board. He's shaking, desperate to go for it, but he resists. He goes pawn d3, keeps the ladies on, wipes the sweat from his brow, and Giri now develops to an active, aggressive square. Hang on, can't you eliminate the knight? Win a pawn on e5. Well, no, the queen comes streaming out to d4. Double hit on the knight and the checkmating f2 square. No good. Magnus starts with pawn c3, looking for expansion later on, dominating this knight. We now get castles. Magnus does the same. Both players do a fist bump for some king safety, explode it out of course. Top professionals do that, and now d6, a very common move. But Anish Giri, he plays the more expansive d5 for a high five. He's threatening to take on e4, double pressured because the knight's here as well. You can take this pawn, but Magnus develops, defends his centre, Giri takes, pawn recaptures, and now once again, do you not need to go say queen e7, cover your e-pawn in case of bishop takes on c6? Well, no. Pawn a5 played by Giri. What is this? We have to show this line. Surely you take and you win a clean pawn here. Well, here's the trick. Rook e8 is played, pressuring here and here, giving a second pawn if white wants to take, hit the queen with tempo, but then everything activates for black. The knight's got very few squares. You come back to d4. This is how the line can go. Huge pressure on the e-pawn and no ability to play f3 due to this pin. Black's going to win the pawn back, restore material, open board, active pieces, doing fine. That's why it's not played. This one takes here. So instead, we see queen c2 from Magnus, queen e7 from Giri, covering his centre now, and a4. Anything you can do, I can do better, sings Magnus in his best Broadway impression, and now Giri steps away for a light refreshment, comes back to the board, completely forgets which direction to move his pieces in. Luckily, it's a good move, unleashes the c-pawn. Now he can bring this one round to d7. Magnus goes h3, both players giving their king some Lufthansa with these bunny ear moves. Rook e1 played, pouring some sugar on the centre pawn, and Giri hits that open file. That's where rooks truly belong, but Magnus wants to maneuver with his knight. That's why he's using the rook to cover with the pawn. First he starts with bishop f1, does it with a whoosh as the top guys do. Now we see knight bd7 and knight c4. Of course, if the bishop sat there, then you'd be running into pawn to c ships, trapped bishop, no good. As it stands, e5 is pressured. This knight, plenty of retreat squares, very fluid position. Giri goes b6, building a kind of semi-banana hammock. Is he preparing to fianchetto bishop or rook? Rook b1 played by Magnus and bishop b7. Sanity prevails. Centre under fire. Bishop d2. Magnus's intentions clearly on the cards here, and I love the next move from Giri. He sees it coming. He goes queen e6, giving some retreat room, activating the queen. It's great chess from both players so far. Magnus expands before Giri can do anything else, and now Giri makes a mistake. What he should do here is retreat this bishop here or say here, and there's a trick to it. It's easy to see why he didn't spot this, because surely after white takes on a5, everything's collapsing. We're in the Batcave, analysis mode. You can't capture there. Bishop drops. This is terrible for black, right? Well, no, this is the trick. Hit the knight on c4 twice with the queen as well. Only defended once. You've got to do something, retreat, and this is how the line can proceed. What a pawn structure for black. What a square for the knight. Everything like that. Interesting game, not played. Magnus wouldn't have had to take on a5, but okay, that was the way to go. Immediate retreat, but not played. Giri takes, given the question mark, pawn recaptures. Now again he should retreat, but he plays bishop d4. Very questionable move, almost as questionable as wearing a shirt like this to an England game later on today. Very suspicious clobber. He's now given up the bishop pair. Magnus doesn't take straight away, pushes a5, and we're really feeling now the pressure of those pawns. He's got this outside passer possibility. You'd love to go c5, support your centre, that kind of thing, but you're always in trouble opening up this b file for the rook, everything like that. Instead, what we see here is rook d to c8, played by Giri, but it just gets worse. He x-rays the queen, yes, but now Magnus picks up the bishop pair, does a ka-ching, still allowed to be played these days, frowned upon, being reviewed by the Global Chess Committee right now, but playable still, within the etiquette. Pawn recaptures and f3, supporting that centre. Knight h5, Giri looking at the dark squares. Queen d3 from Magnus, going after the pawn, and how do you defend? If c5, you can capture. The pawn can't take back, the bishop drops, the knight could take, but then the pawn drops anyway. What to do? Queen f6 runs into e5, so Giri just carries on with his plan. Suddenly he loves bishops. Why didn't he go after them sooner? Magnus tapes with a gobble gobble. Now we see knight takes on f1, rook recaptures, c5 now played, using some nice tactics because the queen's under fire. Giri does a poker face, hoping Magnus won't see it. He takes, pawn recaptures, still doing the poker face, but Magnus spots it. He's world number 1 in all 3 time formats. The bishop under fire. Bishop k6 played now, hitting the knight on c4, and this rook defends. Also steps off the x-ray, very uncomfortable. And now Giri, I hate this move. Who plays this? When you're playing the endgame go, you're down a pawn, I think is correct, yes, down a pawn. He plays bishop takes on c4, queen recaptures, and takes the ladies off the board. The audience start bleating. Don't you know you're playing the endgame goat? One guy even starts a ceremonial plough with his favourite goat. This is horrendous. You're playing Magnus Carlsen, king of endgame, and he's got a passed pawn here. What to do? Giri blockades the a pawn. We see bishop c3, knight under fire, jumps in centrally, rook c4. Magnus decides to just pogo stick along the 4th rank. Now the knight comes to f4, looking for a check maybe. Magnus bomb clouds to cover, knight e6 back, king e3, the march of the monarch, g5 secures a square, but g3. Magnus shuts it straight down. Giri brings the rook to the a file here, not really even threatening anything. He's just thrashing. Now f4 played. Look at that Prawn-ageddon. They're marching. Rook c6 back, and f5. The Space Invaders making their way down the board. The knight hits c7. Look at the power of those pawns with the bishop, complementing each other so well. It's like sage and onion. Rook b6 now played, and the engine wants to just take. Allow the pawn to recapture. Kick the knight about. It's horrible either way. Giri goes for this one, and it's such a bad move that you've actually just allowed Magnus checkmate in 3. But guess what? I'm bigging him up as the endgame goat. The guy misses simply rook b8 check. Even I'd have found that, no I wouldn't. But the king moves here, in this line. You can also kamikaze the knight, and this is how you checkmate. You shut the trap using the pawn. Magnus completely misses it, takes on a6. Knight recaptures here. Now he pushes on with e5. Still ominous. Rook c8 from Giri. Now rook a4. Magnus bouncing. Rook d8 played. Rook a2. And after knight b4, he's got a pleasant choice. He can chop that one off, then start running the a-pawn. Still a good game, but he goes for rook d2. An even stronger move, rook a8 of course. Again, you can take the knight, plant a rook on d5, but Magnus goes rook d6, and he's set Giri up. Hook, line and sinker. to fall into the trap of rook takes on a5. Giri does it, low on time, maybe even sees it, and he's just like, you know what, I've had enough. Because Magnus slams the rook down on the back rank, and we've got all the same themes as before.
By the way, this is a brilliant trap that Anish just fell into, and he's resigned the game.
Because after king h7 not played, then you see pawn e6 on the board, and the checkmate is coming. Completely unavoidable. There's literally nothing black can do except go knight d5 check. Just start kamikaze in pieces to stave off the mate, but of course this is hopelessly lost. This is how the game ended, and what did Magnus do in this tournament? The unprecedented 10 in a row. He adopted a super grandmaster field. Unheard of. What a tournament, what a game. Smash subscribe if you want to become a grandmaster. Results may vary, and for another epic game of chess, check out the video on screen. Cheers.